Welcome back, Bio3D Prep. We are going to finish our discussion of the circulatory system and immunity with a discussion on blood type. In your textbook, it's pages 292 to page 300. By the end of this lecture, you'll be able to explain how the ABO blood groups are related to our immune response. You'll be able to identify the potential donor types for blood type, and you'll be able to describe Rh factor and how it relates to the ABO blood groups. So the blood groups, they were discovered by Carl Landsteiner, and he discovered 4 blood types, type AB, A, B, and O. The red blood cells of each blood type are identified by special glycoproteins, and if you remember, all cells have these glycoproteins embedded on their cell membrane, called antigens. And there's 2 types, A and B, and they're found in the cell membrane. Red blood cells can have either both antigens, one of the 2 antigens, or neither antigen present in their cell membrane. Now, if a recipient receives blood with a foreign antigen, then what's going to happen is that person's immune system is going to recognize those foreign blood cells, those donor blood cells, as being not of their body and attack them. This is going to cause the donor blood to agglutinate, to clump together, because antibodies are going to be released that bind all of those new donor blood cells into clumps. And of course, clumped blood is a bad idea inside of somebody's circulatory system, as it tends to prevent blood from flowing through to vital organs. So here's kind of the way it looks for blood type. If you have blood type A, then that means you have antigen A on your red blood cells. So on your red blood cells, you have the A antigen in your plasma. So in the plasma, or in blood plasma, you are going to have the antibodies that will attack any blood cell that has a B antigen on it. So you have B antibodies in the plasma, A antigens on the blood cells. If you have type B blood, the situation is reversed. You have B antigens on your red blood cells and antibodies for A in your plasma. Type AB blood has both antigens on the red blood cell. Notice that there are no antibodies. And if you have type O blood, it means that your red blood cells don't have either antigen on them. They have other antigens on them that are shared by all blood types, but none of the A or B antigens are on your red blood cells, and as a consequence, you end up with antibodies against both the A antigen and the B antigen. So what this means is, every time you receive donor blood, there's a chance of something called agglutination. Agglutination is when foreign blood is clumped together by the antibodies inside of the recipient's blood. So if the blood is identified as an invader, antibodies are produced. The B cells, the B white blood cells, the leukocytes, are going to produce lots and lots of antibodies, and that's going to cause the donor blood to clump up. And what will happen is blood won't be able to enter capillaries because there's great big clumps, great big masses of cells blocking the way, and that will cause tissue death. So when we're looking at blood type, here we have blood group. And here's another summary. Antigen on the red blood cells, none. Antibodies in the plasma, A and B. So the blood group matches what's on the cell. That's how it's classified. So if you're type A, you have A antigens on your red blood cells. If you're type B, you have type B antigens on your red blood cells. And if you're type AB, you have both antigens on your red blood cells. And here's the nice thing about it. It means you have no antibodies. And if you have no antibodies, it means you can accept anybody's blood type. You're not going to refuse any of them. Whereas if you have type O blood, now type O blood is the universal donor because its red blood cells cannot be recognized as being foreign. There aren't any antigens on those red blood cells, so those red blood cells will always be accepted by a recipient's body. Another factor or another antigen on red blood cells that was discovered in the 1940s is the rhesus factor. It's another antigen, just like the A and B antigen. This one is called the Rh antigen. If you're Rh positive, it means the antigen is present. If you're Rh negative, it means the antigen is not present. So this increases the number of blood types from 4 to 8, because you can be type A positive, type A negative, type B positive, type B negative, and so on. So people now, with the Rh factor, it's not as dramatic as the ABO blood factors, but generally speaking, people with Rh negative blood should not accept blood that's Rh positive. That Rh positive has a foreign antigen on it, and it's going to be recognized as being foreign, and it will be attacked by Rh antibodies. It does become important when we're talking about pregnancy. Mothers who are Rh negative can give birth to Rh positive babies, and this would be because if the father is Rh positive, there's a chance that the baby will also be Rh positive, and this is going to become bad during birth. And we'll get to that after we talk about some blood donations. So here we have a chart that we're just going to fill in, and if you'd like, you can pause the recording maybe and just take a guess as to whether or not the recipient is going to have a problem with the donor blood. So here we have a list of recipients and a list of donors, and the question is the patient going to be okay, or are they going to receive the wrong blood and suffer miserably? So if you want, pause the recording, fill in the blanks, and then turn the recording back on and see if you're right. So we'll start here. If the recipient is A positive, and what I like to do is just write down the antibodies in the blood based on the recipient's blood. So if you're A positive, it means you have B antibodies. If the donor is AB negative, it has B antigens and A antigens. Now the A antigens are fine if you have A type blood. A antigens are no big deal, but these B antigens are going to be bad news. This person is not going to be okay. Those B antigens will be recognized as being foreign, and the B antibodies will cause them to clump together. Now let's look at the AB positive. If you're AB positive, and I guess what I should say is there's B antibodies, there's also no RH though. So there's no RH antibodies because the positive means that you're Rh positive. Now I'll try the next one. AB positive. If you have the A antigen, you won't have any A antibodies. They have the B antigen, so they don't have any B antibodies. And they have the Rh antigen, so their blood will have no antibodies, at least in terms of blood cells. So this means there's nothing here that can be there's nothing here to recognize foreign blood. So O negative has no antigens. Doesn't have the A antigen or the B antigen or the Rh antigen because it's negative. So this is going to be fine. When that foreign blood enters our donor, our recipient, it's not going to be recognized as being foreign. There's no antibodies in the blood. Here we have somebody who is O positive. So if you're O positive, that means the blood cells do not have A or B antigens, which means the plasma is going to have A antibodies and B antibodies. Since they're positive, they have Rh antigens, so they will not have Rh antibodies. When you're given type B blood, so there's a B here, this blood has the B antigen, it's going to be recognized as foreign by the B antibodies. Rh positive is okay, but that B antibody is going to recognize this B type blood as being foreign. This person is not going to be okay. People with blood type O can't receive any other blood than type O blood. When we look at B negative versus B positive, so when we look at this B negative blood in the recipient, there's going to be A antibodies because there's no A antigen on the blood cell, and it's Rh negative, which means there's going to be Rh antibodies. When we look at the blood being received, B antigens, well, that's okay, because the A antibodies don't recognize B antigens as being foreign, so that part's okay. The donor blood is positive, which means it has Rh antigens. this blood has Rh antibodies, so it's not great. The blood will be recognized as being foreign. The reaction isn't going to be as strong as if it was an AB antigen, but there still could be some reaction there, so it's not a great match. B negative shouldn't accept blood from a B positive person. A better choice would be type O. If AB positive, so again, AB positive, we have an AB positive up here. No antigens, or no antibodies, I should say. No antibodies in the plasma. The donor blood has A antigens, B antigens, no Rh antigens, but A antigens doesn't matter, there's no antibodies to recognize them. B antigens, no antibodies to recognize them, so this is going to be okay. So, in terms of best blood type for donor blood, the best donor blood would be O negative. O negative blood has no antigens. There's no A, no B, and no Rh, which means it cannot be recognized as foreign. And if it can't be recognized as foreign, there can't be any type of antibody reaction or immune response reaction to try and get rid of that blood. So the best blood type to receive is type O. If you don't know, in emergency room, if somebody's lost a lot of blood, somebody comes in, they don't know their blood type, type O is the blood that they'll be given because it can't be rejected. In terms of receiving blood, well, no antigens, you can't be recognized. If your blood has no antibodies, and here if we take a look at the AB blood, AB positive blood has no antibodies. It has nothing there to recognize foreign blood as being foreign. So if you have no antibodies, you can accept anybody's blood. So the best recipient blood type is AB positive, because there are no antibodies in the serum or in the blood plasma. Or to react with donor blood. So if you're type AB positive, you can accept O blood, A blood, B blood, AB blood, and it doesn't matter if it's positive or negative because the AB positive blood doesn't have any antibodies in the blood plasma. Now, when we're talking about the Rh factor, if we take a look here, it's called erythroblastosis fetalis. And what this is if you have a baby that's Rh positive and a mother who's Rh negative, what happens is when the baby's born, the mother's exposed to the Rh positive blood and develops Rh positive antibodies. So she's exposed to the blood, Rh antibodies are produced. Now this normally only happens at birth. When the placenta separates, as the baby's coming out of the birth canal, the placenta is going to separate from the mother's uterus, and what that's going to do is cause a mixing of blood between the baby and the mom. Up until that point, the bloods don't mix, and the baby's going to be fine. But when the blood's mixed, the Rh antibodies are produced, and for that baby, life is going to be okay because it's being born. It gets out before the antibodies can attack it, and life is good. But what happens is for subsequent pregnancies, and this is just like building up like a vaccination, a vaccination. If the antibodies are already present, they're going to be stored either in the blood, they can be produced by memory cells, and now those AB those Rh antibodies are going to be ready for the next Rh positive baby. So during the next pregnancy, those Rh antibodies can cross the placenta because antibodies are small proteins and actually endanger the child's life. They can start clogging up that child's blood. It's only going to happen if the baby inherits an Rh positive blood from the father. Can't inherit it from the mother if the mother's Rh negative, but it could inherit it from the father. So in summary, here's a chart just kind of going through, saying what type of characteristics for each blood type. Type O, A, B, and AB. Type O, and here's where you got to get your terminology clear between antigen and antibody. Antigens are always on the cells. Antibodies are proteins that are present in the plasma. So if you're type O blood, there's no antigens. Think about it as being almost like zero. There's 0 antigens on the blood cell. Antibodies in the serum, A and B. If you're type A blood, that's what's on your cells. You're going to have the B antibody in your plasma. If you have type B blood, that's what's on the cells, is the B antigen. You're going to have A antibodies in your plasma. And if you're type AB blood, you're going to have no antibodies in your plasma. And in terms of receiving blood, that's what you want to be. Potential donor types listed on the side. It's not something you need to memorize, but it is something you should be able to figure out on a test. So you should know it. I would argue against memorizing it, but if that's the way you want to do it, then go ahead. There's also the Rhys antigen, and it can be either positive or negative. Positive means the antigen is on your blood cells, which means you're going to have antibodies. You won't have antibodies against it. If you're Rh negative, and we'll just put it down right here, if you're Rh negative, this means you're going to have Rh antibodies in plasma. So generally speaking, it's not as serious a reaction, but generally speaking, people who are Rh negative should not receive Rh positive blood. This wraps up the circulatory and immune system. The next unit is going to be the excretory system and the muscle system. And then we'll be done by 30 prep.